A billionaire walked into Maya's diner at 3 a.m. When his wallet fell open, her heart stopped cold. There, in his expensive leather wallet, was her mother's photo. A woman who'd died just 6 weeks ago, leaving nothing but medical debts. Her mother, who'd scrubbed floors and worked double shifts, who claimed Maya's father had abandoned them before she was born. So why was her picture hidden in a millionaire's wallet? The truth would shatter everything Maya thought she knew. And the slap that echoed through the diner that night would be just the beginning of a story neither was prepared to face. Before we continue, comment from where you are watching from. The neon sign of Rosie's Diner buzzed intermittently in the pre-dawn darkness, casting a sickly blue glow across Maya Reynolds' face as she wiped down the counter for the third time that hour. 3 a.m. and only 2 tables occupied. Another slow night with tips that wouldn't cover tomorrow's textbook payment. 43 days since she'd buried her mother. The thought ambushed her daily, the grief still raw beneath her practiced smile. Maya tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the exhaustion of double shifts and night classes weighing on her like a physical presence. The nursing program didn't care that her mother's cancer had drained their savings. The landlord didn't care that she was now alone. Bills arrived with mechanical precision, indifferent to her loss. The bell above the door chimed. Maya glanced up, her customer service smile reflexively sliding into place. The man who entered didn't belong in a place like Rosie's. That much was immediately clear. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than her semester's tuition, his polished shoes reflecting the diner's flickering lights. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who expected the world to bend to his will, scanning the nearly empty diner before selecting a booth by the window furthest from the other patrons. Maya grabbed a menu and approached his table. "Welcome to Rosie's," she said, the rehearsed greeting automatic after 3 years of service. He didn't look up. "Black coffee, no sugar." "No, please, no thank you." Maya had long stopped expecting common courtesy from customers, especially those who clearly felt above their surroundings. She nodded and returned to the counter, pouring the coffee while stealing glances at the stranger. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar, though she couldn't place it, like a face from a half-forgotten dream. When she returned with his coffee, he barely acknowledged her, his attention fixed on the rain-streaked window. As she set down the cup, he reached into his jacket for his wallet. "On second thought," he said, "I'll take it to go." Maya nodded, turning to grab a paper cup. Behind her, she heard something hit the floor, a soft flutter like paper against linoleum. Instinctively, she turned back. A photograph lay face up on the diner's floor where it had fallen from the man's open wallet. Maya bent to retrieve it, a reflexive courtesy that froze midway as her eyes registered the image. Her mother's face stared back at her. Not the gaunt, pain-etched face from those final months, but younger, vibrant, laughing in sunlight. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she picked up the photograph with trembling fingers, her world suddenly tilting off its axis. "Where did you get this?" The words escaped her throat in a hoarse whisper. The man's head snapped up, truly seeing her for the first time. His steel-blue eyes narrowed, recognition and alarm flashing across his features before his expression hardened into an unreadable mask. "That's mine." His voice was cold, commanding. He extended his hand expectantly. Maya held the photograph tighter, her pulse roaring in her ears. "This is my mother." She turned the photo toward him, her fingers white against the edges. "Why do you have a picture of my mother in your wallet?" Time seemed to stop in that fluorescent-lit diner. The man's jaw tightened, a muscle working beneath the skin. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet. "You must be mistaken." Maya's grief-numbed heart suddenly blazed with anger. "I'm not." Her voice gained strength. "This is Eliana Reynolds, my mother. She died 43 days ago, and I want to know why a man I've never met carries her photograph." The stranger's expression flickered, just for an instant, before his composure returned. Without a word, he reached across the space between them and took the photograph from her hand, his fingers brushing against hers with deliberate coldness. "I don't owe you an explanation," he said, returning the photo to his wallet. Before Maya could respond, he placed a $100 bill on the table, an absurd overpayment that felt more like a dismissal than generosity. Then he stood, straightening his immaculate suit. Maya's shock crystallized into fury. As he turned to leave, she moved without thinking. Her hand connected with his face in a sharp, echoing slap that stopped every conversation in the diner. "How dare you?" she whispered, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. "How dare you carry her picture and then walk away like she meant nothing?" The man's head remained turned from the impact, a red mark blooming on his cheek. For a moment, he didn't move. When he finally looked at her, something had changed in his eyes, a crack in the carefully maintained facade. "You have no idea what you're getting into." His voice was dangerously soft. "Forget what you saw tonight. Forget me." Then he was gone, the bell above the door chiming with finality. Through the window, Maya watched him slide into a sleek black car that purred to life and disappeared into the night. She stood frozen, the phantom weight of the photograph still in her hands, the sting still in her palm. The remaining customers stared, then quickly looked away when she noticed. "Everything okay, honey?" Alice, the night cook, poked her head through the service window, concern etched on her weathered face. "No," Maya said, surprising herself with her honesty. "Nothing's okay." She picked up the $100 bill, crumpling it in her fist. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Maya couldn't sleep that night. Her tiny studio apartment felt more claustrophobic than usual as she paced between the kitchenette and the bed, replaying the encounter over and over. The man's face, his coldness, the photograph of her mother that had vanished back into his wallet. She sat at her second-hand laptop, the blue light harsh against her tired eyes. If the man was wealthy enough to wear custom suits and leave $100 tips, he might be findable. She typed "billionaires" and the city name into the search bar. Pages of results appeared. Tech moguls, real estate developers, finance giants. Too many faces, none of them his. She refined her search. Real estate billionaires, she tried, remembering his commanding presence, the way he'd surveyed the diner like property to be assessed. More results, but still no match. On her fifth search combination, she found him. Alexander Blackwood, founder and CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, a real estate development conglomerate valued at over $7 billion. The photo showed him at a charity gala, his expression as severe as it had been in the diner, though now draped in the trappings of philanthropy. Alexander Blackwood, Maya whispered, the name bitter on her tongue. She read hungrily, scanning articles about his business conquests, his ruthless acquisition strategies, his rare public appearances. Nothing, absolutely nothing, connected him to her mother. Alexander had never married. No children. No family mentioned beyond a reference to old money that had funded his first ventures. How could her mother, a hospital custodian who'd worked overtime for Maya's school supplies, possibly be connected to this man? She opened her phone gallery, scrolling to a photo of her mother from better days. The resemblance to the photograph in Alexander's wallet was unmistakable. Same smile, same light in her eyes. Maya rubbed her temples, trying to recall any mention her mother might have made of a wealthy man, any hint of a past connection. Nothing came to mind. Eliana had always deflected questions about Maya's father, saying only that he'd left before Maya was born, that it had been his loss. Her gaze drifted to the stack of medical bills on her kitchen counter. 6 weeks since the funeral, and debt collectors were already calling. The nursing program scholarship committee had emailed yesterday. Funding cuts meant her tuition assistance for next semester was in jeopardy. Maybe this wasn't just about answers anymore. Maya closed her eyes, seeing her mother's face, feeling the weight of the photograph in her hands. Alexander Blackwood owed her an explanation, and she wasn't leaving without one. Blackwood Enterprises occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper, 52 stories of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds. Maya stood across the street, staring up at it, dressed in the nicest clothes she owned, black slacks, a blue blouse, and the blazer she'd worn to her mother's funeral. This was crazy. Security wouldn't let her anywhere near Alexander Blackwood. She had no appointment, no reason to be here except a photograph she'd glimpsed for mere seconds. And yet... "Excuse me," a sharp voice said as someone bumped into her, breaking her concentration. A young woman hurried past, coffee in one hand, portfolio clutched in the other, clearly late for something important. Maya watched her flash a badge at the building's entrance, disappearing inside. A badge. Maya straightened her blazer and crossed the street with newfound determination. The lobby bustled with morning activity, employees streaming through turnstiles, visitors checking in at the reception desk. She scanned the crowd, looking for an opportunity. There. A group of young professionals waited for an elevator, engaged in conversation. A young man at the edge of the group looked distracted, checking his watch repeatedly while balancing coffee and a stack of folders. Maya took a deep breath and moved. "Oh, thank goodness I caught you," she said, falling into step beside him as they approached the turnstiles. "Jessica asked me to bring these revised projections directly to the meeting." She patted her empty shoulder bag. "She's frantic about the changes." The man blinked, confusion crossing his face. "What meeting? Who's Jessica?" Maya leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "The West Ridge proposal? 10th floor?" She pretended to suddenly realize her mistake. "Oh no, you're not from marketing, are you? I'm so sorry." "No, I'm IT, but—" "Shit, I'm going to be late." Maya glanced at the turnstiles meaningfully. The young man hesitated, then waved his badge. The light turned green, and Maya smoothly stepped through beside him, murmuring thanks. He looked uncertain but too rushed to question her further as they entered the elevator. "Which floor?" someone asked. 52, Maya said confidently. Several people looked at her with newfound interest. Only executives and their assistants had business on the top floor. When the elevator doors opened onto the 52nd floor, Maya stepped into another world. The reception area gleamed with marble and glass, a massive Blackwood Enterprises logo mounted on the wall behind a sleek reception desk. A security guard stood beside it, his expression professionally neutral. Maya approached the desk, heart pounding in her ears. "May I help you?" the receptionist asked, her smile polished to perfection. "I need to see Alexander Blackwood," Maya said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "Do you have an appointment?" The woman's eyes flicked to a computer screen. "No, but it's urgent. It's about Eliana Reynolds." The receptionist's smile remained fixed. "I'm afraid Mr. Blackwood doesn't take unscheduled meetings. You're welcome to leave your contact information. Tell him I have questions about why he carries my dead mother's photograph in his wallet," Maya interrupted, her voice rising slightly. "Tell him the daughter of the woman in that photo won't leave until she gets answers." The receptionist's professional mask slipped for just a moment. She glanced at the security guard who took a step forward. "Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to—" "It's all right, James." A deep voice cut through the tension. Maya turned to see Alexander Blackwood standing in a doorway at the far end of the reception area. His expression was as unreadable as it had been in the diner, but something like resignation flickered in his eyes. "Mr. Blackwood, I can call security," the receptionist began. "That won't be necessary." He studied Maya for a long moment before stepping aside, gesturing to the open door. "Miss Reynolds, please come in." Maya felt a surge of triumph mixed with apprehension as she walked toward him, past the stunned receptionist and security guard. In the doorway, she paused, meeting his gaze directly. "I want the truth," she said quietly. Something that might have been regret crossed his face. The truth is rarely what we expect it to be. He closed the door behind them with a soft click that sounded too much like finality. Hey, if you're enjoying this emotional story, take a quick second to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps support the channel, and it ensures you won't miss what happens next in Maya and Alexander's story. And don't forget to leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Now, back to our story. Alexander Blackwood's office was exactly what Maya had expected. vast, minimalist, and coldly impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city where she'd spent her entire life struggling while he'd surveyed it from above. A single photograph sat on his otherwise pristine desk, turned away from her view. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Maya remained standing. "I didn't come here for pleasantries." A hint of something, admiration perhaps, flickered in his eyes. He moved to a sideboard where a crystal decanter sat. "Drink?" "No." He poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid, his movements deliberate, controlled. When he finally turned to face her, his composure had fully returned. "You've gone to considerable trouble to get here, Miss Reynolds." "Maya," she corrected. "And yes, I have. I want to know why you have a photograph of my mother." He took a measured sip before answering. "Your mother and I knew each other. Many years ago." "That's not an explanation." Maya stepped closer, anger simmering beneath her carefully controlled exterior. "My mother was a hospital custodian who worked overtime to keep our electricity on. You're a billionaire. So I'll ask again. Why do you carry her picture?" Alexander studied her for a long moment. "You look like her." His voice had softened almost imperceptibly. Same eyes. Same determination. "Don't do that," Maya snapped. "Don't talk about her like you knew her." "But I did know her," he replied. Something in his tone made Maya's heart rate quicken. "Better than most." The implication hung in the air between them. Maya felt suddenly lightheaded, pieces shifting into place with terrible clarity. "Were you—" She couldn't finish the question. Alexander set his glass down and moved to the window, his back to her. "Eliana and I met 26 years ago. I was just starting my first development project, a small office building, nothing like this." He gestured to the towering skyscraper around them. She was working as a receptionist in the building next door. Maya listened, her pulse pounding in her ears. She was— He paused, searching for the right word. Extraordinary, brilliant, funny, unimpressed by the family name I was so proud of. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before vanishing. "We were together for nearly a year." "She never mentioned you," Maya said, her voice barely audible. "Not once." Pain flashed across his face. "I'm not surprised." "Why?" The single word contained all her confusion, all her hurt. Alexander's jaw tightened. "Because I left her." The admission seemed torn from him. "My family made it clear that if I stayed with Eliana, I would be cut off. No inheritance, no seed money for my business, no connections." His knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of his desk. "I told myself I'd go back to her once I'd established myself, once I didn't need my family's money." "But you never did," Maya said, the realization bitter on her tongue. "I tried. 2 years later." His eyes clouded with memory. "She was gone. No forwarding address, no way to contact her. I hired investigators, but she disappeared completely." Maya's legs felt suddenly unsteady. She sank into the chair she'd previously refused. "You were looking for her?" Alexander nodded once, sharply. "For years." "But why keep her picture? After all this time?" He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice had lost its practiced smoothness. "Some mistakes haunt you. Some people you never stop missing." Maya stared at him, trying to reconcile this vulnerable admission with the cold man from the diner. "That doesn't explain why you acted like you didn't know her. Why you took the photo and walked away." "Because I saw your face and knew immediately who you were," he said, "and I wasn't prepared for that reality. Not in a diner at 3 a.m, not after 25 years of wondering." The implication of his words hit Maya with physical force. She stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. "Number." "You're not saying—" "I don't know," he interrupted. "Eliana never told me she was pregnant. We never spoke again after I made my choice." His expression tightened with regret. "But looking at you now, I have to wonder." Maya backed away, knocking into a side table. This is insane. You're a stranger. My mother would have told me if... But would she? Eliana had always deflected questions about Maya's father with the same vague answers. He left before you were born. It was his loss. You have my eyes anyway. I need to go, she whispered. Alexander made no move to stop her as she fled his office, past the startled receptionist into the waiting elevator. The doors closed on his watching figure, and Maya collapsed against the wall, her world spinning off its axis for the second time in 24 hours. That night, Maya sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes of her mother's belongings. She'd been slowly sorting through them since the funeral, unable to bear doing it all at once. Now she searched with desperate purpose, looking for anything: a letter, a photograph, a scrap of evidence that might confirm or deny Alexander's story. In the third box, beneath a stack of old birthday cards, she found a small wooden jewelry box she'd never seen before. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside lay a silver pendant on a delicate chain, nestled on faded velvet. She lifted it carefully, turning it over in her palm. 3 words were engraved on one side: forgive, love, begin. On the back was a tiny photograph: Alexander Blackwood, young and smiling in a way Maya hadn't thought him capable of. A folded note lay beneath the pendant. Maya opened it with shaking fingers, recognizing her mother's handwriting immediately. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you found what I've kept hidden all these years. The man in this photograph is your father. His name is Alexander Blackwood. I left him before he could leave us, protecting you from the pain of rejection I was certain would come. Perhaps that was wrong of me. Perhaps I was protecting myself as much as you. Love makes us do things we later question. Whatever you choose to do with this truth is your decision alone. Know that you were born of love, even if that love wasn't strong enough to endure. Forgive, love, begin. This was his promise to me once. Maybe it can still mean something to you. All my love, always, Mom. Maya clutched the pendant to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Her mother had known she might someday need this truth, had prepared for it, had given Maya the choice she herself had never had. The photograph of Alexander stared up at her, young and hopeful, so different from the hardened man she'd met. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the pendant in her palm, the weight of 25 years of secrets, the weight of decisions not hers but that had shaped her entire existence. Tomorrow she would return to Blackwood Enterprises, and this time she would bring the truth with her. Morning sunlight glinted off the Blackwood Enterprises tower as Maya approached it for the second time in 2 days. The pendant hung around her neck, its weight unfamiliar but somehow grounding. This time, she walked directly to the reception desk, no subterfuge required. I need to see Alexander Blackwood, she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. The receptionist, a different woman from yesterday, smiled politely. Do you have an appointment? No. Maya touched the pendant at her throat. But tell him Maya Reynolds is here. Tell him I found what my mother left for me. The woman's expression remained professional, but her eyebrows lifted slightly. 1 moment, please. She made a quiet phone call, then nodded. Mr. Blackwood will see you. Please take the private elevator to the right. Maya rode up alone, her reflection in the mirrored walls revealing a woman she barely recognized, determined, focused, forever changed by what she now knew. When the doors opened, Alexander was waiting. He looked as if he hadn't slept, his customary perfection showing small cracks, a slight wrinkle in his shirt, a hint of stubble on his jaw. His eyes immediately went to the pendant at her throat. You found it, he said. It wasn't a question. Maya stepped off the elevator. You knew she had this? I gave it to her. His voice was rough with memory. For her birthday, a month before I left. She kept it all these years. Maya touched the cool silver. Hidden, but kept. Alexander nodded, a muscle working in his jaw. Please, come in. They walked silently to his office. This time, Maya noticed photographs on the walls she'd been too angry to see yesterday. Buildings, developments, evidence of the empire he'd chosen over her mother. Over her. He closed the door behind them, then turned to face her. Maya, She held up her hand, stopping him. I need to say something first. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. My mother left me a letter with this pendant. She confirmed what you suspected yesterday. You're my father. Alexander's face remained composed, but his hands, those controlled, powerful hands, trembled slightly before he clasped them behind his back. I'm not here for your money, Maya continued. I'm not here to disrupt your life or make demands. I'm here because... Her voice faltered momentarily. Because I've spent 25 years wondering why I wasn't enough for my father to stay, and now I know it had nothing to do with me at all. It had nothing to do with you, Alexander confirmed quietly. A choice I made before I knew you existed. A choice to leave my mother for money, Maya said, the words sharp as glass in her throat. For all this. She gestured to the opulent office, the empire built on the foundation of his absence. Alexander didn't flinch from the accusation. Yes, I chose ambition over love. I convinced myself it was temporary, that I could have both eventually. His voice dropped. I was wrong. Did you ever wonder, Maya asked, the question that had burned in her since yesterday. All those years, did you ever wonder if there might be a child? He moved to the window, his reflection superimposed over the city sprawl. Not at first. Later, yes. I wondered many things. He turned to face her. But wondering isn't knowing, and knowing now changes everything. Does it? Maya challenged. How exactly does it change your life, Alexander? You've built your empire. You've achieved everything you left her for. What does knowing about me change? Everything, he repeated, his composure finally cracking. Do you think I look at you and see a problem to be managed? A PR situation? I look at you and see 25 years of a life I should have been part of. I see birthdays and graduations and first days of school I missed. I see your mother raising you alone while I built monuments to my own ego. His voice broke on the last word. I see my greatest failure standing in front of me, wearing her mother's eyes. The raw emotion in his voice silenced Maya's prepared arguments. This wasn't the cold, controlled billionaire from the diner. This was a man confronting the consequences of a choice he couldn't undo. I don't know what happens now, she admitted, the anger that had carried her into his office beginning to dissolve into something more complicated. I didn't think past this moment. Alexander approached her slowly, stopping at a respectful distance. What do you want to happen? Maya touched the pendant again, feeling its weight. Forgive. Love. Begin. Her mother's final gift, not just the truth, but permission to decide what to do with it. I don't want your money, she said again, more firmly this time, but I'd like to know who you are. Not Alexander Blackwood the billionaire, just the man my mother once loved enough to keep this for 25 years. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, perhaps. Or hope. I'd like that, too. I can't promise forgiveness, Maya warned. Not yet. I don't expect it, he said simply, but I would like the chance to earn it. Maya nodded, a tentative agreement. Not an ending, but a beginning. She unclasped the pendant from around her neck and held it out to him. Do you want this back? Alexander looked at it for a long moment, then gently closed her fingers around it. It was always meant for you. Your mother understood that before I did. A tear slipped down Maya's cheek, unexpected and unguarded. Alexander's hand moved as if to wipe it away, then stopped, the gesture uncompleted, a boundary not yet ready to be crossed. Would you like to have dinner? He asked instead. Not here, somewhere. Neutral. Somewhere we can talk. "I'd like that," Maya surprised herself by saying. As they walked toward the elevator together, neither spoke. The pendant hung once more around Maya's neck, a weight she was beginning to understand, not just of the past, but of possibilities. 6 months later. Maya stood outside the hospital, still in her scrubs after finishing her clinicals. The nursing program scholarship committee had somehow received an anonymous donation that restored her funding, a coincidence Maya had chosen not to examine too closely. "How was your day?" Alexander asked, handing her a coffee as he approached. Their weekly meetups had become a ritual. Sometimes dinner, sometimes just coffee, always an incremental building of something neither of them had names for yet. "Exhausting," she admitted, "but good." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. They walked together toward the park, falling into the comfortable rhythm they'd developed. Not yet family, but no longer strangers. Alexander glanced at the pendant she still wore, now as much a part of her daily life as her watch or her keys. "Your mother would be proud of you." "I know," Maya said softly, and meant it. There were still difficult days, still moments when the weight of what might have been threatened to overwhelm what could be. But as they walked side by side in the fading light, Maya felt the words on her pendant taking root in her heart. Forgive, love, begin, one step at a time. Please do comment your feedback and subscribe to our channel for more unexpected stories. Remember, it's never too late to change your story.